Hi guys, I think we're live now. If someone could just confirm they can hear me, that'd be really great. Kenzie, hello. Yeah, that's good. Emily James, hi, nice to see you all. Good, nice to see you all here, guys. Hi. Yep, hi, great to see. Huggins, hello. Hugger Monster, who else have we got? So nice to see you all here, guys. I guess I'll just get a few house rules out the way. I've put on slow chat, I'm afraid, which basically just means that you can't be, you know, like pouring questions out. So I did this for my A-level exam last week, and it was just so hard to keep up. Kind of like now, I'm trying to say hello to everybody. So yeah, it was just difficult to keep up with questions. So hopefully, we should be able to keep on top of questions. Now I've already seen a couple really good questions. Someone asked a question earlier about storyboarding and what you should do in a storyboarding question. Well, we don't even know if storyboarding is going to come up. It's just that one of the creative questions about your TV game show, it could be storyboarding, and they might ask you to storyboard maybe the first few minutes of the show. They might ask you to storyboard the opening title sequence, which I think is much more likely. Now, if that happens, really what they're looking for is they're looking for evidence that you understand the conventions of storyboarding. They also want to see creativity. So, are you, really doing something different, really being creative and trying to create meaning through the storyboard? In which case, that's going to score highly. But the other thing is. I think the other thing is you want to be using the right terminology. So make sure you're referring to what camera angles you would use, what transitions you'd use. That kind of thing is certainly going to result in a much better result for storyboards, whoever that was. Okay, Bandit, you just had a question. Can you go through each question and ideal answers? I can't really give you answers, I'm afraid, purely because so much of what you write is going to be based on your own idea, but also, once you're given the preliminary materials, I'm not really allowed to do teaching per se. I'm allowed to advise, which is what I'm going to try and do this evening. I'll try and advise you. So I will show you some example questions. Jack Stevens, nice to see you there, but we'll go through that in a little bit. What do you include in a storyboard? We were just talking about that one, so we want to make sure that you include camera angles, transitions, lighting. You want to make sure shot duration. If you've got time, it advises you on the front of the preliminary materials to bring pencils, fine liner, and coloured pencils. So, I mean, it sounds crazy, but they want to be seeing colour as much as possible because colour is another way that create meaning, right? So, if there's a red element to your opening sequence, let's say, then that's going to be really important to include that one. Right, I'm sorry guys, I'm so far behind on these questions, so keep them coming. I'll try and work back a bit. Can I use colouring pens, pencils? It may sound silly, Victoria. No, it's not silly. I'm pretty sure you can use either. I'd recommend pencils just because you can get around it easier that way. Ruth, use different camera angles. I think I've just gotten a bit of a question there. Let's go. What sort of things should I put on why are TV game shows so popular? So Jack Rotho, why are TV game shows so popular? Hopefully you've studied uses and gratification theory. Which is basically the 4 reasons why people are gratified by a media text. So broadly speaking, that is information, personal identity, social interaction, and entertainment. Now, the main reason that people watch TV game shows is the number one is social interaction, and that's between you and the people on the couch. So you watch it with your friends and family, and you compete over oh, do you think you know the answer to this one, stuff like that. But it's also social interaction between you and the hosts. So I mean, with my class, we did Pointless as one of our case studies. So after 1,000 episodes or so, you get to know Alexander Armstrong and Richard Osman to the point where you enjoy seeing them. So that's another element of social interaction. It's another reason why they watch TV game shows. But then again, don't forget, for whatever case studies you had, Jack, you've got to be specific. Why do people play 5 Gold Rings? Because they love the interaction of having that little app. Why do people watch University Challenge? Because it's very elitist. And if you think about the 4 C's, so the cross-cultural consumer characterization, that would really appeal to aspirers, so that's a really good thing. And for any of my guys, if you're not entirely sure what I'm talking about there with the cross-cultural stuff, look up the 4Cs, okay? So let's move on. What am I predicting to come up? I am predicting most definitely a question where they ask you about your idea. I think they'll ask for a storyboard. I wouldn't be surprised if they throw in a bit of a curveball. They might ask you to not storyboard. They might ask you to plan your website. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So sometimes in the past, if they've just given you like a big A3 piece of paper, design a homepage for your TV game show. And since they made such a big point of e-media in the preliminary materials, I'm certain there might be a question about how you would create an app. And for that, you might want to sketch it. You might want to like draw a few different screens, but you should know for the interactive element with e-media for your TV game show, you should know how you would use an app, how you would use social media. I'm so far behind. Adil, great beard, thank you. I'm working on it. It's very, very nice of you to say so. I've just skipped a bunch of different ones. Likely. My teacher gave me a different past paper to the one we had in class, and it had set game show titles. Is this likely? Does it mean we have to change our pitch? I don't think that's going to happen, Emma. In previous years, they have occasionally given you preliminary materials where there's a few different options. So a good example is a few years ago, rather than TV game shows, they had to do video games. And in their preliminary materials, there were 2 or 3 case studies, and you had to pick one on the spot. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think they've made it quite clear that you can do whatever you want with your TV game show, so I don't think that will happen. Emily James, Mr. Hunter, hello. I'm trying to look back. If I missed a question from you, Emily, I've got so many questions to catch up on. What would be the main theories that would come up in this exam version? There aren't going to be theorists built into the exam. It's up to you to answer them. So really the question is, which theorists should you be using for this? If it's about the audience, you should be talking about uses and gratification theory, Blonder and Katz. If you're talking about audience, you might also want to talk about the 4Cs. So that is, the different psychographics of people who watch TV game shows. I mean, we've looked a little bit at Todorov for narrative theory, just in terms of the round-based structure of TV game shows means it's a circular narrative, so you can apply Todorov to that. But really, obviously, beyond that, it is primarily about your ideas and how you present those. Right, I'll tell you what. Anyone who's written a question, I'm really sorry, guys. I'm just going to go down to the absolute bottom. After today's English exam, AQA are unpredictable. I couldn't agree more with you, Spectre. They are completely unpredictable. All right, tell you what, guys. If you could just hold fire on questions for a second, I'm going to cut off there, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to show you some questions that I've prepared on like what to expect tomorrow. So if I just switch to my my desktop view, this should work. I've not actually done this before. Dominic Brooker, I gave you a shout out, Dom. Emily, I'm breaking it for tomorrow. Please help. Emily, don't be. We spoke about this fine. You are going to be absolutely fine tomorrow. Anyway, so if I just show you, if I go into Google Drive, which annoyingly is on a different login, so I'm going to go over here. What I want to show you are several questions which I prepared for my class, and it should prove to be a little bit helpful at least. So if we go to Google Drive, this is a mock paper that I kind of put together of questions that you might expect. So really this is the kind of stuff we would hope comes up when it loads. So about this, guys. I'll tell you what, while it loads I could ask a few more questions. Hi Christian. We can do this. Yes, you can, Victoria. That's what I'm talking about. Positive attitude. You can do this. What bullet points are you predicting to be on question 1? Chloe, I reckon they're going to be, we think, So this is from Chloe Elizabeth. I think that the bullet point's going to be, we think that successful TV game shows have a unique selling point, appeal to a wide audience, and make use of and social media. Those are the bullet points I'm predicting. What are you supposed to write for the pitch? From Resi. I'll talk to you about that in a second. I've got a proper one. Right, let's go back to this. So if we go to curriculum, where are we? You guys are media studies. So if we go into exam, here we go. This is a mock paper that I wrote for my guys, and it's good for, you know, for Huggins and for Emily James and Kenzie and everyone watching. It would be good for you to go over these notes again and just think, realistically, if these questions did come up, how would you answer? So I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this on this streaming screen, but the first thing you'll notice is, and you should well know this, your exam is going to consist of 4 questions. They're all worth 15 marks. So you want to spend about the equal time on all of them. And we agreed today that realistically you want to be spending about 25 minutes, 20 minutes on each question. And that gives you 10 minutes to kind of like play around with it. So someone asked earlier, what do I think question 1's going to be? This is the kind of thing to expect for question 1. Now this is the one which is based on your research. So you should have been looking at 2 TV game shows. You might have looked at the 2 ones which I covered in my main video I put up a few weeks ago. You might also have changed it once they kind of announced that it was specifically Saturday night TV game shows. So my guys have been doing Pointless Celebrities, which is Saturday night, but they've also, just today they've done a bit of research, and going back a week on 5 Gold Rings, which is a great one for the use of e-media. So here's an example of what question 1 might look like. We think that TV game shows appeal to audiences because they use imaginative USPs, so unique selling point. That's a really, really important part of the pitch that they kind of put in. Inventive sets, I mean, I don't know, it could be about the set, it could be about the opening sequence, it could be about use of e-media. And the next one, e-media for audience participation. From your research, select 2 examples of TV game shows and explain how successfully they have both used these ingredients. So for question 1, it's all about research, and it's a fully written question. However, AQA are very, very clear that if you want to add some sketches to supplement your answers, you are more than welcome to. So let me give you an example. If you were talking about how, I don't know, if you were talking about how 5 Gold Rings uses its set built into the floor where you've got the screen, if you felt it necessary to kind of draw a diagram of the set layout, then you can most certainly do that and annotate it. If you, I don't know, if you had a question about, how you would design the set and you want to kind of like draw a sketch, then you can most certainly do that. Question 2. So again, guys, I'm not saying that these are going to come up by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm trying to say is these are the kind of things to expect. Question 2. Now give us your pitch for a Saturday night TV game show. You need to include an outline of what the contestants do, details about the set, a profile of the host, an explanation of how your ideas will appeal to family audiences. Now, you probably won't get these bullet points on a question where you have to outline your pitch, your idea. I've included those more as kind of pointers, as like, don't forget, you've got to include everything. You've got to be really specific. You've got to sell this idea. Question 3 I came up with was, a strategy for allowing the audience to engage with your TV game show would be through e-media and social media. Outline your ideas for how these 2 platforms could be used to promote your show and encourage your audience. You may wish to include diagrams. Now, in the preliminary materials, which you are hopefully very, very, very familiar with, there was so many references to e-media and social media and making it interactive and making it 21st century. I would be stunned if that does not have a significant part to play in tomorrow's exam. Now, I have no idea whether that means it will be discussing how existing shows use these things, or if they want to know your ideas for how, I think it will be how you intend to use them. But that's another area where you need to really, tomorrow's exam, what would you do? The opening sequence of a TV game show needs to use the enclosed storyboards to show the idea for the intro. big, that's an example of, have we frozen? Or are we good? I think we're good. So I'm just going to quickly block Looney for the rude message. So let's block you there. Done. Can we go up to question 1? Sorry, Junior. Are we lagging slightly less now? I tell you what, guys. I'm going to restart the stream and lower the quality a little bit. Okay. Okay, guys. I've lowered the quality, so it probably doesn't look quite as good, but it should be a lot better. So there you go, guys. Those were 4 questions that I kind of predicted, but that doesn't mean they're there. The only thing I can assure you is there will be at least one research-based question. So again, I don't know what the bullet points are going to be, but you should have 2 really, really thorough case studies. The other ones are going to be about your own production. Now, there was a checklist that I produced for my students of kind of like, these are all of the things you most definitely should have considered with your own TV game show. Lux Pulse, I'll show you question 1 again in a second. So the things that you should most definitely have considered with your TV game show. First off, the format. So broadly speaking, when we talk about format, we talk about kind of like the structure of the show, starting off with an introductory round, then the bonus round, then the big finale, stuff like that. So what is the broad format of your show? The next most important thing, obviously, I would say, is the content. What do contestants have to do? And this often links to the USP, the unique selling point. So think about this. Do they get questions? And if so, what kind of questions? Once they answer the question, does that enable them to play a game of some sort? In which case, what's the game? So, I mean, just to make up an example that I was using the other day, it might be that you have a quiz show where you're asked questions, and upon answering something correctly, you get to play a round of battle chess, like in Harry Potter, and the whole set is this ginormous battle chess game. Well, that content, that's something you really need to be sure about, in which case you need to know, well, how much money do you win for winning a round? Do you win money or points? Do you win prizes? Who would your host be? Again, I have no idea what they're going to ask in the test tomorrow, but you need to have considered everything. So who would you pick as a host? What would the opening sequence look like if you were to storyboard it? You know, these are things that you don't necessarily have to do tonight if you've not thought about it already, although I'd hope you would have done. But you might want to just consider what would you do in the opening sequence if you haven't already considered it? What would the set look like? Maybe you could have a go at designing that. Most importantly of all, I would say absolutely most importantly of all, what would you do in terms of e-media and social media to help promote your product? That's a big one. It's bound to come up. Ruth Cummings, uses and gratifications. What do you buy? What do you write about when they ask about your e-media? Okay, so that was from Addy Luffman. You'd be expected to give them a really creative, great idea of how you could use e-media. So a great going by my battle chess pitch. Let's go with that one. I would have an app where the person at home could take the side of one of the 2 teams and play against one of the players from home. And fine, it would only be for their own sake, or they could like have a high score which might feature in the show. But that would be a great use for e-media. Using social media, that might be kind of like having a Twitter account where you could tweet as soon as the show's going live, or a blog where the host kind of like puts down some quizzes during the week. That's the kind of thing you could do if you wanted. E-media, a separate question. Hey Bobby, I've got no idea. I think e-media is most definitely going to feature in the paper. I don't know if it'll be a question on its own, kind of like one of the storyboard ones, like show us your ideas for e-media, or it might just feature as part of a larger question. I'm really not sure. Let's just quickly block Gavin and remove him. There we go. Someone just said, have we got a lesson tomorrow morning? Dom, yes. Could you be at my room for like 8:15? We will most definitely be doing a hot lesson in the morning. Just go over the preliminary materials again. How do you use theories in the exam and what questions, Olivia? That depends on what theories you've been taught. I think the most easy ones to apply are uses and gratification theory for audience. If you're not familiar with uses and gratification theory, check my channel because I've got a very, very simple video about how you would apply that. How many paragraphs would you recommend you write for each question, Mel? I wouldn't set a set number of paragraphs to write. All I would say is you want to spend 20 minutes on each question. Try not to go over, but as many paragraphs as you can write in 20 minutes. Tadua, what are USPs? Unique selling points. Things that make one TV game show different from another one. So if you look at Tipping Point, the unique selling point of that is when you answer a question correctly, you get to have a go on this giant kind of like casino slot machine. That's a USP. It makes it unique. Okay. It's a shame. I'm going to have to kick a few people, guys. This isn't great. Let's remove and report. There we go. So, no, I don't want to take the exam for you. Prelim refers to opening title sequence. This is Hey Bobby, so it must be that. Otherwise, would have been stitched up. Yeah, but like someone said earlier, AQA have certainly stitched up before. I think to have put it in there, you're right. Title sequences are definitely going to feature in one way or another. The question is whether they're going to feature by asking for your ideas for an opening title sequence or whether they're going to ask you for your analysis of like existing title sequences. Either way, I agree with you. I think they are going to feature most definitely. How do you include all the family in your own show, Henry? Well, a lot of people have done that by their contestants being kind of like a whole family. A lot of people have done it by kind of making it almost like a fun game rather than anything too trivia based. You could make it more kind of, like Ninja Warrior, something which is just fun to watch. It's an activity kind of game which is fun to kids and adults. Okay, I'm just reporting a few more people. Sorry, guys. So, Alexia, should I plan a website and a storyboard in case either one gets asked tomorrow? Yeah, certainly wouldn't hurt. I mean, don't go nuts on it. Like, don't get a really, really crazy late night and stuff. But it would be nice if you had a picture in your mind of a website, if that's the kind of thing, the layout that you would go for. It would also be nice if you could picture the opening title sequence, just because if it comes up, then that would be really, really good. Bartholomew Hall, my prediction is designing a set. Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And if you do get that, just doing like a top-down kind of like blueprint sort of thing, that would be a really, really cool question. It's a nice one because you should have thought about how geometric shapes and colour and different things within your set can be used to create meaning. So that would be a really, really cool one. Holly Daniel, Levi Strauss theory. So you're talking about binary opposites there. Not really sure how that could apply because that's more narrative based. Just reporting a comment. Shame, guys, haven't really got time for the silly comments for those of you who are doing those. Do I think website will come up? Wouldn't surprise me. Is the opening title sequence, Hannah, is the opening title sequence the animation bit? Yes, it is. So that would be like, the first 30 seconds or so. But bearing in mind, if they do give you a storyboard, it will only be about 5 frames or so. So hypodermic needle, unlikely to come up. I can't really think how you would do that. So again, shame we've just got to block, remove and block. Okay, would we need to annotate a possible opening title sequence for a website? Yes, most definitely. As much information as possible. So, I mean, the worst storyboards are going to be the ones where it's just the pictures. Truth is, we want to see kind of transitions between shots. We want to see annotations of what the camera angle is, stuff like that. So I think it's really, really important that you annotate stuff. If you draw a website, don't just draw the website, annotate it and say layout buttons, navigation, link to blog, link to the iPlayer. That's use of eMedia. That'd be really, really good. So that's a really, really good shout. You should definitely be doing that kind of stuff. Spectre, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you think the exam will be? Oh, I don't know, like 8 maybe? Is this for AQA Media Studies, Tiffany? Yes, it is. Yeah, Victoria, I know what you said about some of those stupid comments. What can you do? Yeah, I don't know what to say to them. How to a lot of marks in pitch and justification. That's from Honor. It depends on how they word the question. Depending on how they word the question, they'll probably ask for a few specifics, like please make sure you include ideas of what the contestants would do, how it would appeal to the audience. So as long as you're very, very detailed in your pitch, then you should be fine. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to catch up with some of the questions here. Are there any examples of a storyboard or a studio set to use as an example so I can create my own? So that's from Shaimul. Not really, I haven't got any here at home. I wish at school I could have shown you like some of the ones my students have kind of done. Just imagine a top-down view of the set and think about where the audience would be placed, think about where the host and the contestants would be, think about how colour and lighting might be used in the set. So again, if you look at the likes of Tipping Point, the lighting starts off as very blue, which is quite like, casual, laid back, not too tense. By the time you get to the final in most shows, it goes bright red, because obviously the connotations of red are a danger. So we want it to get more and more tense as the show goes on. Jack, I'm afraid I don't know anything about Take Me Out. I've never watched it. The 2 ones I did with my students are Pointless, and we did University Challenge, but that was obviously before they announced it was going to be Saturday night. Is marketing game shows likely to come up? Aaron, I don't know. Maybe. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if AQA do throw one of those curveballs in there where marketing wasn't a lot in there, but they did talk about social media. If they ask you about marketing, you most definitely have to talk about having a website and using social media. So a great example is Pointless, where Richard Osman uses Twitter to kind of like get people excited about the show. Where are we? What's Maslow's theory? That's from Rowan Johnson. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's just this idea that humans all have like 7 different levels of needs, and you can't really reach the next level before you had the one before it. So our most basal needs are, we need to have air to breathe and water to drink, and we need food. Like that's the most basal need that we have. Once you've got those things, you need safety, you need shelter. Once you've got those things, you can start working your way up towards self-actualization and kind of like self-esteem, feeling good about yourself. So again, that's an interesting one. I'm just trying to think, how would you apply Maslow to TV game shows? I suppose you could argue for the kind of like the elitists and for the achievers out there. I think you could probably argue that they're going to feel like they've self-actualized. They're going to feel good about themselves if they answer some questions. Do I think storyboards would come up? Yes, sir. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's just skipped a bunch of questions. I'm sorry. I'm really struggling to keep up with these questions, guys. I'm sorry. So I will try and say as many as I can. How many examples of game shows should we know for the exams? That's from It's Aliz. You should have 2 case studies that you know pretty darn well. Can we use non-family TV show examples to explain points or not? Yeah, I guess so. If that's what you've been studying, fair enough. I mean, a good example is I did University Challenge before the preliminary materials came out. I did University Challenge with my students. Now, the way it's worked out is that's not a family show at all. So that's almost like a bit of a redundant case study. So they've obviously gone off and done their own research on 5 gold rings, stuff like that, Saturday night TV shows. But yeah, you should really be talking about family shows. That's what they specified. Would I say The Chase is a family-friendly show? Yes, it most definitely is a family show. Wide target audience. Can't think of a game show idea. We might want to prioritize that. Really think about that. Will I lose marks if I use more than two case studies, Jazz? Not sure. I'd say 20 minutes per question isn't very long. I'd be amazed if you have time to write about more than two within that time. I'd be more inclined to write a lot about 2 case studies than trying to write any more, especially since in the question I'll probably specify 2. Okay, someone's asking if I could show you the checklist of things that you should have really considered. I'll do that. So I'm just going to switch to my desktop view. And if I go back, I'll just close this one down. And it was in this little PowerPoint. So this is a checklist of all of the things that realistically you should have considered. Once it loads, it is being a bit low because of the stream, I'm afraid. While it's loading up, I'll tell you what, anyone who missed these questions, here are 4 questions that I put together to kind of like give you an idea as to what to expect. So question 1 is always going to be a research-based question, and I put down, we think that TV game shows appeal to audiences because they use imaginative USPs, inventive sets, e-media for audience participation. From your research, select 2 examples of TV game shows and explain how successfully they have both used these ingredients. Now, I've got no idea if those are going to be any of the bullet points. There are probably going to be three bullet points, but they could be anything. They could be, we think TV game shows appeal to audiences because they have a recognizable host. It could be that one of them is they make great use of social media. They have big prizes. I don't know what they're going to say, but they are going to ask you how well the case studies that you've studied are at doing those things. Now, in terms of the things that you should really have considered for your own TV game show, that would be, where are we? Here we go. So, consider this. These are the things that, in my mind, if you've not considered this about your own TV game show, you really should think about it now. So, what's the format of your show? In other words, is it round-based? Are there bonus rounds? Is there a final? How does it work? Who's the host? Like I said, you should really have considered who this would be. Depending on the nature of your idea, you should really know who you would like to cast. What does the set look like? So again, guys, you might want to just consider what the floor plan would be, where the contestants are in relation to the audience, where the host is. If there's a big game board, where does that go? How you would use colour and lighting. What's the opening sequence like? Again, just think about that in terms of storyboards. If you only had 5 frames, what would they be? What kind of questions are asked? What are the prizes? This is a Saturday night TV game show, so we should really be expecting pretty big prizes. How does it make use of e-media and social media? If you've not thought about that, that's almost, I would say, the most important thing. Consider now, for your idea for a TV game show, what have you done? And how would you market your show? So we were just talking about that in terms of using social media or perhaps a website, something like that. So there you go, guys. Those are just a few ideas for what kind of things you could be doing tonight if you're a bit kind of like, what on earth should I do? Let's see. Just trying to pick up on some questions. Could a bullet point in question 1 be an element of competition? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good shout. That could absolutely be in there. I'm not going to say no. From Princess XO, that's the kind of thing that could come up, and you're expected to know your case studies well enough that you could just like hit that one off the bat. So yeah, for my guys, they've got University Challenge Point of Celebrities, 5 gold rings for a few of them.
But yeah. Would having someone be drenched in water for getting a question wrong be a good, unique selling point? Yeah, I guess so. Hidden loyalty. I like that. I'd watch that. Could you tell some info about the 2 case study question? So that's the one that people seem to be worried about the most. That one was from Mega. I'm just going to block someone quickly. This is a bit of a waste of time for those people who are posting stuff like that, I'm afraid. Yeah, that seems to be the one that people are worried about the most, is that research one. I think the thing to just bear in mind is you should know 2 TV game shows very, very thoroughly. And I mean, if you're feeling a little bit like, oh, I'm not so sure, I'd recommend maybe watching my video on TV game shows, perhaps even going to the iPlayer, actually watch an episode again, remind yourself what the host looks like, remind yourself what the set looks like, what the introductory, the opening sequence is like. Those are all things that can really help you. What about gratification uses? Yep, Ava, that's bound to come up. So for uses and gratification, you want to cite Blumler and Katz. I think of the 4 different gratifications there are for a media text, the most important ones are, 1, for entertainment, people just love watching it, but most importantly, social interaction. And that's social interaction between the people on the couch. You watch TV game shows together and you kind of banter together, don't you? You kind of say, oh, I reckon it's A, you reckon it's B, stuff like that. But there's also some social interaction between you and the hosts, because you get to know Alexander Armstrong and you get to know Jeremy Paxman, and you like seeing them. Do you know what I mean? What's the difference between the title and the opening sequence? They're the same thing, Mohammed. So the opening title, the opening sequence, they're the same thing. Just different words for them. Right, here are we. What does the colour purple represent as blue and red are most commonly used? I mean, are you talking about purple in terms of Elizabeth Ford? Are you talking about purple in terms of pointless? I think it's a very unintimidating, gender-neutral colour. And it kind of like starts off there. It also represents wealth. You know, when you think about purple and royalty, I think it's a very strong, vibrant colour. So you could associate it with royalty and wealth. You could also associate it with like the bright lights of Las Vegas and casinos. You know, so I mean, you could go like that. Okay, that's an important one from Tiffany. Is X Factor and Britain's Got Talent a TV game show? I'm afraid that is not a TV game show, that's a talent show. And it actually said in the advice sent out to teachers that you shouldn't be teaching with those, because those are most definitely talent shows. So if you've been looking at those, I'd recommend tonight you maybe take a look at something else, because those are talent shows. I'm just blocking someone who felt the need to just say that. Why is the colour red and blue used? So that was from Hannah. Just a really good example of how one show might start off the early rounds in blue, and as the questions get harder and the stakes get higher and there's a chance you could lose all of your money, stuff like that, very often the set changes to hues of red, and there are connotations there of danger, stuff like that. Yeah, just to repeat what Holly just said, X Factor and Britain's Got Talent are not game shows, I'm afraid. They are talent shows. Where are we? Is Tipping Point a family show? Yes, it most definitely is. What will happen in task 4? I don't know what order the question is going to be in, but it will probably will be like, you know, a production task. Or it might be asking you to justify one of your early production tasks. Keywords, that's a good question. So the keywords are, you want to be talking about connotations for anything you write about, unique selling point, audience, gratification, really all the words you've been studying since the start of media studies. Please could you explain Bloomer and Katz? Lara, if you check my channel after this video, I've got a video that completely outlines uses and gratification theory, so you're much better off watching that. I'll do a much better job in that video. Do you have to annotate onto the actual picture of the storyboard? Jamster, yeah, I would recommend that. Basically, the things that you most definitely want to include are, you want to include shot types, transitions, how you'd use lighting, shot duration. So those are the kind of annotations that I would expect to see on any storyboard. Can you define the difference between e-media and social media? Liberty Grace, that's a great question. So e-media, the E in e-media stands for electronics. So that's anything online. So that is kind of, you know, apps, blogs, you know, websites, stuff like that. That's all e-media. Whereas, let's put the light on. Whereas social media, although it's still electronic, it's still digital, that's a very specific type of e-media, which is stuff like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's all social media, and really, it's the way that people get their news now. It's how people connect to the media. So obviously, an awful lot of stuff is done through social media. So let's just keep going down. What would you say about the set of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's a very old case study, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Probably too much to go into in this one. Just going to block that person. What a waste of their time and ours. What are the possible storyboard questions, Mohammed? I think it's quite possible that you would be asked to... won't we get given storyboards with sections regarding sound and mise en scene? Yeah, I mean, that's up to you, Ruth, to remember to put those ones in. So it depends on what they ask for the storyboard for. If they ask you to storyboard the first few minutes of the show, then that's one thing. But if they ask you to storyboard the opening title sequence, that's very, very different. So mise en scene won't kind of like come into that very much. I'll be honest, I would be really, really chuffed if they asked you to use a blank piece of paper to design the set for your TV game show. That would be a lovely one, because you could write so much about mise en scene, and you could like show how you'd use color and stuff like that. Oh my word, guys! The amount of blocking going on this this channel is kind of crazy. Please talk about Todorov. I will do in a second. Just blocking a few people. How would we answer a question on case studies that include e-media if we did the Generation Game or Family Fortunes? Unfortunately, Anna, I'm really sorry to tell you this. If those are the case studies that you've been looking at, those ones aren't really going to have that. Like you quite rightly said, they were pre-e-media. So I'll keep my fingers crossed for you that when they talk about e-media, it's asking about your ideas rather than theirs, because there's not going to be a lot to write about there. Lisa Marie, please talk about Todorov. So Todorov, the idea of the circular narrative, there being kind of like equilibrium, disruption, return to a new equilibrium. Now that's a circular narrative that can just go on and on and on. So if you think about this half-hour TV game show, if it's made up of say 5 or 6 rounds, that's a circular narrative. And if you think about what time TV game shows are on during the week, kind of like if you think about it being on about 5 o'clock when people are getting back from work, it doesn't really matter if you've missed the first 15 minutes of the show. You can just jump straight in and pick up that narrative. What is Enigma code? So that's the idea of creating questions in the audience. So really, you could be creating enigmas quite early on in your opening title sequence by creating puzzles. You know, who is this character in the title sequence? What do they have to do? Lewis, key theories and terms I should revise for tomorrow. All of the theorists I refer to in my main TV game shows video. So straight after, I'd really recommend for anyone kind of like, do you know what, I want to do a last little bit of revision after this. If you've got nothing else to do for your own idea and you want to just think about those research questions, go watch my video about TV game shows, because in that one I cover a bunch of theories, including Blumner and Katz, Enigma code, stuff like that. How should the pitch be structured? I just saw someone write. That depends on. That depends very much on. I forgot what the question was now. I just read another one. Sorry. How long should you spend on each question? 20 minutes. How should the questions be structured? That depends on the question. So I can't really answer that one. Gosh, there's a lot of questions. Struggling to keep up now. Are you marked on your drawing? To a degree, Georgia. You are to a degree marked on your drawing, but realistically, what they are interested in, is your creativity. To a degree, perhaps I think they are going to be limited by the quality of your drawing, but realistically, it's a case of how you've used space. For example, if you're going to do a set design, how have you used space? How have you used color? How imaginative is the idea? Those are the kind of things they're going to be marking you on. Just trying to pick up on some questions here, guys. Is colour important? Yes, most definitely. When you think about the different connotations of colour, how that can be used. What is a unique selling point? A unique selling point is something that makes a TV game show unique, something that makes it separate from all of the other TV game shows out there. So to give you some examples, the unique selling point of 5 Gold Rings is that you have a giant playing board that you stand on, and you have to select an area using one of the golden rings. That's a unique selling point. The unique selling point of pointless is that you have to get the lowest score, not the highest score. Yeah, total wipeout can be used, most definitely. Is a script likely to come up? I wouldn't be surprised, Ben Howard. I would not be surprised if a script did come up. I mean, like we said, AQA, they can throw in some curveballs, so why not? Yeah, it certainly could do. Keywords we should all use, Lisa Marie. Connotations is obviously a big one. If ever you're talking about one of your ideas about, like, I want to have this colour for my set, I want this in the mise en scene, I want this camera angle, think about the connotations of them. That's the go-to word. Jack Ruffo, I don't need help. Cool. What is a script? Good question, Princess. It's literally a written version of how something sounds. Where are we? How would you use the cross-cultural consumer characterization? That is a really good question. The 4 C's, that is when you're talking about the audience. And if they ask you, how are audiences gratified? Why do audiences watch them? Think about that. You can talk about uses and gratification, but you can also talk about the different kinds of people who watch them. So we'd argue that games like, I don't know, Total Wipeout that appeal to the masses, that might appeal to the mainstream. But if you think about game shows like Eggheads and University Challenge, they're going to appeal to the achievers, people who want to be the best of the best. USP is unique selling point. Yes, it most definitely is, Arrow. What's the difference between diegetic and non-diegetic? Diegetic is sound that is within the scene. Non-diegetic is sound which has been added, basically. So, for example, them saying, I'm just doing a quick block. Them saying something to each other, that would be diegetic. Sound effects or music which aren't on the set, that would be non-diegetic. Does it matter if your case studies aren't Saturday night shows? That's from Jasmine. That's a really great question. And it's a great question because in the run-up to this exam, I've not been doing Saturday night TV game shows with my students. We've been doing Pointless and University Challenge. Now, obviously, once the preliminary tasks came out and I'm not officially allowed to teach them anymore, I encouraged them to go off and research Saturday night TV game shows. So, you know, you might have been looking at the likes of 5 Gold Rings, you might have been looking at Pointless Celebrities. I think realistically they should be Saturday night TV game shows, but better to write about something than nothing, if you know what I mean. Will we have to talk about how the audience can interact with the show? Most definitely. They made several comments in the preliminary materials about how they made several references to e-media and how they wanted to be a 21st century show, stuff like that. That's most definitely going to be in there somewhat, somehow. Is Pointless mainstream? I'd say so. Can you go through the preliminary materials, please? I'm afraid I don't have them with me there at school, but I'd really, really recommend that you read it again tomorrow. The chase and the cube are most definitely okay. Yep. Someone's just asked, what is synergy? Synergy is a word for 2 things working with each other. So an example of that would be, say, Pointless the TV show and Pointless the board game. 2 separate products which kind of like sell each other. So in other words, you might buy the board game and think, oh, I'm going to watch it on TV now. Or you might be a fan of the show and then you'll be drawn to the board game. So 2 separate things which work with each other. Is Pointless Celebrities family appeal? I'd say so, most definitely. And you'll usually find they'll have a range of celebrities on there. So, you know, for the younger audiences, they might have, like, I don't know, the Chuckle Brothers or Jedward. And then for the older audiences, they might have someone like Gary Barlow. I don't know, someone who'd appeal to like a wide range of audiences. Can I use more than two game shows in question 1? We spoke about this earlier, Lunar Infinity. I don't really see the point. They specify in the question 2 TV game shows, so that's what you should go for. What is the best game show to be used? Anything on a Saturday night. So popular ones at the minute have been 5 Gold Rings. That's been a really, really popular one. Tipping Point is okay to use. Yep, that's a great one. Is Chase and Ninja Warrior family? Most definitely yes. Am I excited for Red Dead Redemption 2? Not so much. Not really. So, Honey Badger, Hello, Honey Badger. Right, do you have any questions? Um, League of Their Own, yep. Catchphrase, yep. A lot of people are just asking at the minute, kind of, what questions or what shows actually constitute as a TV game show. All of these ones are fine. Really, the thing that they have actually stipulated as these do not classify as TV game shows are talent shows. Okay, so that's kind of like that's stuff like Britain's Got Talent and The X Factor. Although there's an element of competition in there, they actually specify those are talent shows. Have I got news for you? Yeah, I guess that's a panel show. That'd be a pretty good one. I wouldn't have said it's a family show, though. That's very quite an adult program. Have I got news for you? Name the character transitions, please. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Tosa. Can you say again, please? Marketing techniques, Ruth Cummings. I would say marketing techniques you need to really be looking at for our use of a website. Think about how programs on ITV, they have advertising, whereas obviously the BBC, they don't do advertising. Think about social media, how the host might have a Twitter page, which becomes interactive, stuff like that. Think about having an app in the App Store for your iPhone or whatever. That's all going to help market your stuff. David Cardi, I get asked this an awful lot. How do you structure your answer? I can't really answer that because it depends on what question you get. For question one, the research, just make sure that you, if I was you, for question one, where you're going to get 3 bullet points and you have to say how well your case studies do those things, I would make sure I cover all 3 bullet points for case study 1, then all 3 bullet points for case study 2. Try and spend 10 minutes on each so that after 20 minutes you can move on to question 2. That's how I would most definitely do it. How do game shows... Oh, I've missed that one. How does hypodermic syringe model mean? I don't really see how hypodermic needle would come into this. It's not really going to work, in my opinion. Likelihood of website for a creative task, it's not something I would discount, Caitlin. I think the likely creative tasks are going to be storyboard, possibly, or design an app, or design a web page. Those are the ones that I'm gunning for, I reckon. What would a web page look like? If you're asking that question, AJ, I would strongly recommend straight after this feed, go to the Pointless webpage, go to the Tipping Point webpage, take a look, familiarise yourself with the layout. So needless to say, I mean, come on, you guys grew up with the internet. You know they're going to have a banner at the top, and you know they're going to have navigation underneath. This side they might have a blog, this side they might have links to the latest episodes you can watch on an iPlayer. That's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a web page. But if you're not sure, go and have a look at one straight after this. What angles would be great? If you get asked something about how they use camera angles, watch my video about TV game shows, because I speak about how there's the crane shot, which kind of like lifts up between rounds, and that shows kind of like lifting between levels, the pace kind of like getting greater, stuff like that. Otherwise, when we're talking to the contestants, it's always a mid shot, a long shot. You don't tend to get close-ups very often. How would we show our appeal to young and old? I think that's going to be very, very integral to your idea, and it's going to be basically a case of making sure that the questions or the task at hand is something that everyone's going to like. It's not too babyish and it's not too difficult, and the contestants and the host would appeal to a wide audience. I think they're the biggies. Do you need to talk about Enigma codes in the exam? Certainly wouldn't hurt. The examiner would love to see your knowledge of theory. And bearing in mind, Enigma codes would fit very, very nicely into openings, title sequences, and the whole nature of the show, if you think about it, building enigmas. Are they going to win? How much are they going to win? Are they going to lose at all? It's all enigmas, isn't it? Trying to catch up on this. Okay, so Honor, you said our game show is on Communique TV and it cannot be on ITV BBC. Communique TV have put this out, so we don't really know anything about whether or not it's going to have, paid advertising or if it's by the taxpayer. So really, I'd avoid kind of going into whether it would be on BBC or ITV, unless they ask for that particularly. Okay, let's take a look at some of these questions. How will we use social media and e-media to engage our audience? That is really a simple case of using Twitter, using apps, using blogs, stuff like that. Anything to make the show more interactive. How can we hit older audiences with social media? Well, think about the different people that they could follow on social media. So, I mean, depending on the host, maybe if the host is someone like Alexander Armstrong, he's probably more likely to get older kind of like followers on Twitter, something like that. Would we need to design a logo? I don't think so, AJ. Don't think so. Please explain psychographic appeal. So that's the 4 C's. So I think for most Saturday night shows, it's going to be for the mainstream, but there's also going to be an element of the succeeder, the achiever, that kind of thing, people who want to win. How many media theories must be included? I mean, there's no set answer to that, Kaylee, but in truth, I think no matter what questions come up tomorrow, uses and gratification is a nice, easy one to apply. They're going to want to know how you're hitting the audience that they specified, kids to adults. So they are going to ask about audience. So for that reason, if there was just one killer theory, it would be uses and gratification, Bloomer and Katz. How do you design an app, Louise? That's a simple case of, they'll probably give you like a blank piece of A4. You'll just sketch like the home screen, sketch what it would look like. So depending on the nature of your show and how you play along with the game, that will determine, you know, the nature of the app. What's the difference between e-media and social media? E-media is anything electronic, so it might be an app or it might be a web page, something like that. Social media is stuff like Twitter. Guys, I'm afraid I'm going to have to kind of wrap up there. We're getting an awful lot of the same questions coming through. So if you've joined this feed quite late, this video is going to go on in its entirety, kind of like straight after. So if you want to go back and kind of like see it from the beginning, I've covered an awful lot of the questions that we're seeing now. So yeah, very good luck tomorrow. I would say just some final pointers tonight. Before you call it a night for revision, the things that you should most definitely be doing are make sure you've got a USP for your game show. Make sure there's a very, very unique point to your idea. Make sure it appeals to that audience of kids to families. It's a Saturday night TV game show, so it's got to appeal to absolutely everybody. I'd recommend, if you've got time, I know it's like a 30-minute video, I'd recommend watching my TV game shows video, because in that one I go over all the case studies. I go over the mise-en-scene and the camera angle, stuff like that. Oh, sorry, guys, I'm sorry. I've just seen one more question. I am going to answer that one. What about the ABC model? Yeah, so that's your socio-economic groups. So really, who watches TV game shows in terms of like their social class and their income? So again, if we think about the likes of University Challenge, that's going to appeal to like a group of AB. So the AB group, they're very high earners. They're likely to be doctors and lawyers, stuff like that. When we get down to those shows which are more mainstream, like Pointless and Tipping Point, they're far more inclusive. So they're probably going to go from like B down to D or E. You know, they kind of like cover everything. Bartholomew, no worries. I'm more than happy to help. Sorry for all of the people who have been just trying to like spam. For those of you who've been kind of like firing away some really good questions, I'm really sorry. I've not been able to answer all of them. Good luck tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's about it. For my students, for any of my guys who are watching, I'm going to be in my classroom from 10, quarter past 8 tomorrow. So I'd really like to just have like a last minute chat with you all. Wish you luck before you head off. And yeah, I think there's nothing left to do now, guys, except for just do it. Okay? So you'll be fine. Don't stress about it too much. It'll be all good. All right. Cheers, guys.